Now, until last Tuesday afternoon, there was still no legal agreement in place which moved the Anglican Deanery of Jersey from the Diocese of Winchester into the Diocese of Canterbury, in spite of an announcement that it was due to happen back in January on the 21st of that month. The BBC had learned that there had been 4 meetings to date to formalise the split from Winchester, but none of them had been successful. The 5th on Tuesday, however, sealed the deal. But what is that deal? Has Jersey moved from Winchester to Canterbury, or has Bishop Trevor, the Bishop of Dover, who now has oversight of Jersey and Guernsey's deaneries, simply become an assistant bishop within the Diocese of Winchester? Well, the Dean of Jersey, the Very Reverend Bob Key, has asked his clergy to pray for Bishop Trevor today as he takes on the role of episcopal oversight. It does mean the ending of a dispute over the way that a complaint about safeguarding was handled between the Dean and the Bishop of Winchester. Some clergy and lay members have welcomed the proposal, others have urged caution and called for more discussion. Well, as we reported last week, the Dean had written to Island churches instructing them to continue paying their parish share to Winchester for now to meet the cost of clergy stipends and pensions. So, more questions than answers perhaps. I'm joined now by the former St Martin deputy Bob Hill, who has been campaigning for greater clarity in this issue. Bob Hill, are you happy now that this matter has been resolved?
It hasn't been resolved. All they've done, actually, is probably, you could say, move the goalpost. They've ignored the main concern, which was, and the whole purpose of the Chorus Review in the first place, is what about HG? What about the victim in this? And she, again, has been completely ignored. Bob is not even going to not even going to pray for her, but he will be asking people to pray for Bishop, what's it now, Trevor now, is it?
Yeah, Bishop Trevor, the Bishop of Dover, has oversight now of the Church of England here in Jersey for up to perhaps 3 or 4 years, a temporary basis that seems to be as long as you want it to be.
Well, yes, I heard the interview that you gave with Bob Key, and he said, how long's a piece of string? And also the issue we've got is having another commission. What for? I think the sad thing about all this really is that here we have very senior clergymen who cannot get on, and yet they stand in the pulpit or whatever and preach people about loving each other, love thy neighbour, and the issue of peace and reconciliation. Yet we have 2 people like this setting such a bad example for the rest of us. And I'm disappointed actually in the Archbishop himself for not really, I'm not saying banging their heads together, but actually sitting them down and say, don't you realise the harm you're doing to the image of the Church of England and all our spiritual teachings?
It all stems from a falling out, it would seem, just over a year ago between the Dean of Jersey and the Bishop of Winchester, Tim Daking, over the way in which the Dean handled a safeguarding complaint in relation to HG. The Archbishop of Canterbury apologised publicly. The Bishop of Winchester pointedly said that he was publicly apologising, but told me that he hadn't actually spoken to HG directly.
I can confirm that. That is a fact.
And he equivocated for a long time, as you well heard on this programme. And now we've got the Dean of Jersey. Has he spoken to HG?
No. So never made an attempt.
Do these apologies mean anything then?
They mean nothing. I've got from page 37 here of the Chorus report, and I'll just quote it very quickly. The Church let HG down, despite the difficulties of her background and disablement, and the struggle with some everyday practicalities. HG was nonetheless in employment, pursuing hobbies, socialising, and wanting to be accepted in the church community. Over the next 3 years, HG's life changed from having no history of being in trouble with the law to having a police record and being a displaced person, homeless on the streets in the mainland. Now, that is as a result of the church, and we can say what we want about healing and love and everything else. Where is the love? Where's the Christianity? Where's the example?
Yeah, the Dean told me that he'd been exonerated. The fact is, he thinks that the Chorus report should be taken down and is no longer relevant.
No, certainly has not been exonerated, and I'm really disappointed to see someone like Senator Balash appearing on television saying that he's been, and then his brother in the chair at States Assembly saying he's been exonerated, and States members stamping their feet in appreciation. The Dean has not been exonerated. We won't know until we see the Steele report, but what we know is that the Dean apologised for mistakes made in his handling of it when he was reinstated, so he obviously admits the fact that he's caused some grief.
Yeah, in his defence, he said to me in his interview, which we broadcast earlier, that he believed he was exonerated because if he hadn't have been exonerated, A, he would not have been reinstated, and B, Dame Heather Steele or Bishop John Gladwin Dean, who are also conducting inquiries, would have said so by now, and all hell would have been rained down upon him, I suppose.
Now, I believe political pressure was put on to the Bishop of Winchester to come up with something, because how can, if a report has not been completed, how can one say that no action is being taken? And the whole I think actually the Steele report or investigation is a complete farce. How can she say that no action is being taken when, on the other hand, they say their report hasn't been completed?
Dame Heather Steele has written a report commissioned by the Bishop of Winchester, Tim Dakin, into the situation, into the legal situation, and to the way in which the Dean was suspended and the way in which the complaint was handled. It's not been published because one of the interested parties has put a block on it. That can't be good, surely.
No, but is that the truth? It's the problem.
That's what Dame Heather Steele told me in an email.
Well, she may well have said that, yes, but I had a 3-hour interview with her, a meeting with her. It was supposed to be with HG, but and we were supposed to meet at Church House. This was last October.
This is Church House in London, isn't it?
Church House in London, yes. And immediately, once the Church of England knew that HG was going to come on the premises, they asked that the meeting be held elsewhere. When I had that meeting with Dame Heather, a number of factors came out, and it was quite clear that Dame Heather did not wish to see HG, and she was in a hurry to get a report. She said her report was going to be in at the end of the month, and that was, I think, 26th of October, so within 5 days, and there was nothing more that could be added, even though when I saw her, and I pointed out, and I gave her papers, I showed her papers, and said, have you seen all these documents? She said no. And I said, well, how can you, as a judge, make a decision without seeing the actual prime witness?
There is some irony in all of this, insofar as that you and the Dean of Jersey could probably make common cause, because you're both calling for the Steele inquiry to be made public, aren't you?
Well, I don't think it can be made public. I cannot see how it can be made public, one, for two reasons. One, having not interviewed the main witness, so therefore how can you have a report? And the other thing is, I'm afraid, as a result of my interview or my meeting with Dame Heather and some of the remarks she made, she actually endorsed the feeling which I and a lot of others felt, that she was conflicted, and there's no way in which she should have been undertaking that investigation in the first place. And the fact that she refuses to give me the transcript of our interview really bears witness to the fact that she knows she has something to hide. If she has nothing to hide, why not give me the 3-hour transcript?
It seems to me that the Church has form on not providing transcripts. I've asked a number of people for a copy of the agreement signed last Tuesday, and basically the word from Lambeth Palace, where the Archbishop of Canterbury is based, is that it's not going to be made public.
I know. I've just recently done a blog on it, and the issue of that again, what does the signatures, or what does is a memorandum of standing or the agreement?
Yeah, but how can Senator Ian Gorse, as the Chief Minister, stand in the Youth Assembly and say he welcomes the agreement unless he's seen the agreement?
He hasn't seen it, no.
Has he seen the agreement?
I don't think he has. I don't think anyone has. I've asked for it, and again, as always, I don't get replies. Quite naturally, what is wrong with it? What I want to know, actually, are we transferring everything that happens in Winchester now over to Bishop of Dover? Or is it just a case of you carry on and it's just a titular, is it a sinecure post? Is it just a means of...
The Bishop of Dover is effectively the working bishop in the Diocese of Canterbury, because the Archbishop of Canterbury is too busy running the wider Anglican communion. So Bishop Trevor's got a full-time job running the Diocese of Canterbury. How much time, realistically, can he spend looking after Jersey and Guernsey?
Well, exactly. And I think this is all part of what's going on under the carpet, or under the covers. It's so lack of openness, isn't it, really?
So who's paying for all of this, then?
Well, that's another issue, isn't it? We know that at least £200,000 has been spent, although £500,000 was allowed for. And you know what? Only a fraction was ever spent on HG. The fraction was the overnight stay in a travel lodge in London, because I was with her. And that's all that's been spent. And yet one could think of what one could do, not just to help HG, but the other people who are in dire need for help and assistance. And yet here we are spending money on pointless investigations. The Gladwin visitation seems pointless now because they're going to commission another.
We all pay for the Anglican Anglican Church, whether we are members or not, through our rates. Is that something you'd like to see changed here in Jersey?
I don't think so. I brought my rate book in this morning to show you, but in Trinity we have about 3,000 residents, and our church bill, so to speak, last was just under 50,000. That was to pay for the upkeep of the church, pay for the upkeep of everything else, including the rectory. So, even if you don't go to church, if you're a Catholic, Muslim, whatever religion you're, or even not religion, you still pay. And, someone has to be accountable. But who are they accountable to?
So what do you want to see happen now?
I think one can just keep pressing like I do. I write every 2 weeks to the Bishop of Winchester asking if I can have a copy of the transcript. I also ask what they're actually doing to help HG, because a promise was made last June when I was with HG with Bishop Gladwin. And these are sort of things that one can keep asking, but I really feel I'm banging my head against a brick wall, as indeed anyone else will be. I understand BBC in the same position.
We did invite the Bishop of Winchester, Tim Daking, to join us. He politely declined. Bob Hill, thank you very much indeed.